Ethical egoism. Consequentialist theory means what matters are the consequences. For it to be considered ethical depends on how much community can benefit from the consequences. However, if the consequences only benefit for one person of a few, then it is considered as unethical. It is a normative theory about what we ought to do, how we ought to act. This theory can be understood in three different ways, which are personal, individual, and universal ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is one of the consequentialist theory, which is the rightness or wrongness of an action is determined by its consequences. Ethical egoism is the radical idea that the principle of self-interest account for all one's moral obligation. Personal ethical egoism means I am going to act in my own interest and I don't care what other people do. Individual ethical egoism means I am going to act in my own interest and everyone else should do too. Meanwhile, universal egoism means every person including me should act in his or her own interest. Ethical egoism claims that it is necessary and sufficient for an action to be morally right that it maximizes one's self-interest.
Relation to ethical egoism. M. Mohan's acceptance of the incentive of 250,000 ringgit can be considered as selfishly motivated action, also called as an action of ethical egoism in the field of ethics. Ethical egoism claims that any action, whether right or wrong depending on different moral perspectives, bases itself on the maximization of the doer's self-interest or the doer's own idea of good with minimal consideration about the welfare of others. According to M. Mohan's lawyer, before any sentence was conducted, he had a good record during his previous 18 years of service and was suddenly seduced by the lucrative amount offered. There might be a possibility that the accused went through a financial problem, hence the easy decision for an ethically egoistic conduct with the acceptance of the lucrative amount. The conduct of A. Sinaya can also be considered as an action of ethical egoism, considering that the reason for his bribery was to stop the investigation on his previous offense. Even though this might benefit the receiver of the bribe, but the action was fully based on his own self-interest without consideration of the receiver's welfare. M. Mohan did not receive any benefit whatsoever from the incentive due to him being sentenced, but by accepting the offer, he acted on the basis of his own interest, thinking that he might maximize his benefit afterwards.
Thank you for your attention.
Created using Powtoon.